So, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. Drop a line if so. Hi, Gabriel, Annalisa, Martina, Oliver, Luigi, Leonardo, Elisa again, and Marek Siabash. I hope I read the name correctly. Can you all hear me? Yay! Okay, so I apologize for this delay of the live streaming. So thank you for who's now connected with us. I am Dorina Hüsembeli, Orientation and Mission Manager for the Talent Garden Innovation School. And I'll be here today with Erika Lauro, that you'll see soon in a few minutes. First of all, I would like to present in a few words who we are, because it's important to know the context, the frame of about which we're talking today. So for who doesn't know us at all, Talent Garden is more than a school. So you probably know us because of the UX Design Fundamentals Master that you applied for. But we were born as a co-working space. We are one of the largest European co-working networks. And our goal is to allow all professionals of the digital and tech sector to work in the same place, physical place, and bring their ideas together. We're a school, not a traditional one. So as a school, we have an offer of trainings regarding always the digital and innovation fields. And we train young adults, but also professionals. You'll see later on a few details about this. Last but not least, we've trained a lot of, we've followed in their journey a lot of companies with our corporate transformation team in their digital transformation journey. So this is another important pillar of Talent Garden. So I guess you all now understand that we are a community, not just a space, and we want to be a community, an ecosystem that brings people together and helps them grow. And our community is made of over 4,500 members, small, medium enterprises, startups, freelancers, corporates, big corporates. We've trained and we keep training more than 5,000 students and some young children between them. We've followed and in their corporate transformation, in their digital transformation path, more than 300 corporates. And we've done and we keep doing events like this. And so far, we've done 1,900. Our path, just a graphical view. We've started the very first campus in Brescia from our founder, Davide Dattoli, in 2011. He was only 21 years old by the time. And in 2015, we started the international expansion in Europe, over the Europe. Now we are planning to open soon during this year our new campus in France and 3 other campuses in southern Italy. Overall, 8 countries, 17 cities, 21 campuses. So as you can see, our focus is Europe and to grow this digital and tech community over the Europe. These are some of our partners. We're very proud. We've built this network of partners in this 10 years, professionals, companies, people that trusted in us. So now there are more than 500, actually. But talking about the Innovation School, which is the main focus today, what do? Is provide the skills and culture needed for digital innovation enabling people and companies in Europe to change and become leaders in an increasingly digital world. And I guess with 2020 and the COVID situation, we all know that if we want to guide this world, we have to go through this. Talent Garden Innovation School is now mainly in 3 physical locations, but obviously everything now is virtual. So we have this European location is all over. But also our school is present in Italy, Austria, and Denmark. And we've run more than 88 intakes and master's programs regarding our main areas, which are the following ones: data, business data analysis, and data science. Business, by this we mean digital HR, digital transformation, and digital product management. Marketing, digital marketing and growth hacking. Coding and design. So the topic to which we are more connected today is absolutely in this last group. So the UX design fundamentals, the program is developed in 9 weeks, a project-based 8 weeks live learning experience on Mondays and Wednesdays from 18 to 21 Central European Time. So there are going to be 43 hours of learning live sessions. There is going to be some individual session, one-to-one mentoring session, and obviously some networking and career events to make sure that you all going to use the new skills and knowledge to progress, to keep going with your career and to make a good use of it. For those of you that didn't have the chance to see the brochure of this master so far, these are the modules. This is just a brief overview. I kindly suggest you to download the brochure if interested to this path, because there are a lot of contents about the tools, the methodology, the content that we see in each of them. And it's important for us that every participant that goes in our classrooms knows really well what he or she is going to approach soon. So pricing and scholarship, I'm anticipating a few questions that come quite often in our during our interviews, during our meetings with the candidates. There is going to be a challenge day, actually 2 hours from 5 to 7 p.m., always Central European Time. And we are giving a scholarship that covers 100% of the participation fee and 2 scholarships of 50% of the participation fee. The enrollment fee is always fixed and applies to every scholarship, but please keep in mind the date March 19th, because above the economical side, which is always pleasant, let's say, to earn, but it's also a way to prove yourself, is going to be a short activity with a brief, and you all can develop your project in an hour and pitch it for 2 minutes. So it's a really fun activity above all. And now I would like to introduce you all to Erika Lauro.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Dorina. Hello. Hello, hello. Do you hear me okay? Please let me know also in the comments if the audio is fine.
Yes, awesome. Yes, Erika. Thank you. And it's really a big pleasure to have you with us today. Erika is a senior product designer for Zalando, but also is going to be a member of our faculty. So we're really happy to have her with us today. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we'll jump in some interesting topics about UX design. And Erika, I'll leave the word to you.
Sure. So hello, everybody, again. So I'm Erika. I'm a senior product designer at Zalando. I started my career in designing physical products. So designing furniture, like pens, any kind of like physical products, actually. After that, I specialized myself into strategic design at the Politecnico di Milano. And after that, basically, I've been involved in different projects, mainly in brand strategy and UX strategy. And in the last 6 years, I just focus mainly into service design and UX. I work mainly in 2 agencies, working in Amsterdam for AKQA, and now I switch into a product design centric company. And I'm currently leading projects here at Zalando in Berlin.
Erika, would you like me to share a few thoughts? Would you like to say something more about your professional expertise, or just jump in?
Sure. Again, I'm going to be part of the faculty member, as you were saying, Dorina. So I'm going to focus on 2 main modules. So it's going to be the second one and the 7th one, which are mainly about UX research. And I'm super passionate about the topic. I developed quite a strong expertise around it in the last years. And again, I always advocate for UX research in any kind of design process, because again, UX is not about styling. That creates a lot of difference between UX and other kind of design fields. And if you don't do research, basically UX without X, which is again the users, and that basically doesn't exist. So if you don't know who you're designing for, that's really hard to actually get meaningful solutions.
So let's start with the very first question. I have the support slides for you, but I know that you're going to just say it loud, whatever you think naturally and spontaneously. So what is the role of a UX designer?
Right. So that is always a nice question, because, again, the perception of what we do is very different. So in general, what others expect us to do is to make things pretty, which we kind of do, but we do it in a later stage of the design process. I always say that we mostly advocate for customers and research real needs. Most of the times when product managers or other business developers that are part of the product development process, they come to us and they say, yeah, we have this very big business opportunity. Sure. How are we going to create value for our customers? That's our job mainly. And because of that, we need to really challenge teams and make them feel slightly uncomfortable. So to ask questions, we need to ask questions a lot, and to understand, first of all, what are other actors in the market that are delivering similar solutions, to understand the competition, but also effectively researching in different ways how customers are thinking, behaving, and currently experiencing different solutions. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, I can also elaborate a little bit more about, again, how we challenge teams, asking questions, as I said. And it's literally a little bit like an investigator role. So you need to do different kind of research to get a better understanding of your customers. And why that is very important is because if you don't do that, first of all, something that I always say, you are not the final user. You're not designing for yourself. So you need to empathize with others. And without that, you cannot actually design for different needs compared to yours. The second thing is, of course, as you as a designer, when you actually design solutions, if it's not rooted into insights, that's how they are called, when you do actually UX research, it's very hard to justify what are you doing. And unfortunately, you go into one very bad place that I really, really don't like, which is opinion land. So everybody comes with oh, I like this color, or I like this better. And actually UX is not about opinions, but is really rooted into research and creating solutions that respond to that insights that you created up front. And last but not least, of course, the design impact on a company. Again, if you don't do research and you build a solution that is actually not validated, so you're not sure how customers are going to respond to that, you have the big risk of launching something that customers are not going to adopt at the end. So you think that looks great, that everybody is gonna love it, but at the end they don't. So you have to make sure that along the design process, you actually validate different things, and just to make sure that you actually launch something that is meaningful for them.
Thank you, Erika. I wanted to jump in the second question, but my attention got captured from challenge teams and make them feel uncomfortable. I really like this, maybe because it's in the DNA of Talent Garden. How do you do that?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question. Again, so first of all, let's say that one of our main tasks is also understanding your stakeholders. So it's not only understanding the users that you design for, but it's also understanding different perspectives. And again, for example, like what I mean with challenging teams is basically when, again, they come to you with a great business idea that could create a lot of value for actually the business that you work for. Is when you actually ask the questions, like the very simple question saying, how do we know that we're going to create value for our customers? Because again, if we create value for our customers, that is going to be like more retention maybe in the future. And then also from the economical side of things, also is going to create a lot of impact also for the business as well. So again, challenging means also not basing all the projects on assumptions. So we can create assumptions at the beginning saying, yeah, I think that customers would want this, or maybe are having this pain point here in this experience. But you cannot work with assumptions. So that's why you need to make decisions on design based on evidence. That's super important, because if not, everybody has a say on it, and you're going to end to a place where it's very hard to justify what you have done, let's say.
Thanks, Erika. So second question, UX research. If you can explain, maybe by using a few examples if you'd like, why is it important? And maybe we can start off what it is for those that are not familiar with the concept, and then why is it important?
Sure. So UX research is, let's say, a discipline itself. There is one role inside an organization. Let's say it's more like a luxury to have a UX researcher. So that's why also UX designers are required to have some UX research skills. So let's say that, again, you can do different kind of research. Mainly there are two different buckets of research, which one is qualitative. So it's basically more like, for example, interviews or user testings or usability testings, where you basically deep dive into the customer behaviors, needs, and pain points. So you can really, it's a very psychological research, I would say. And on the other side, we have the quantitative one. So that means, for example, analytics. So we can currently see how customers are behaving on our app, on our website. But the main difference is that the quantitative data can tell you what is going on, but not why. So again, maybe Dorina, if you want to show the next slide, I can also give a small example. So again, just taking out a random landing page, right? One landing page that you're working on. You can see from data analytics that the traffic on page is really high, but there is a lot of drop off. This does tell you that there is something wrong in it, so you don't really know what, but you know that something is going on here. So there is some friction for sure in the experience for customers, of course, depending on the kind of landing page that we're talking about. So through user testing or through observing customers when they actually use this page, you can actually discover something more, that maybe customers are not finding the right information, so they leave. So to have a full spectrum of understanding and a full picture of how customers are thinking, are behaving, and what are they expecting and what they need, you need both, always. Depending on the project, of course, you can start with an existing solution. So again, if you already have a website or an app that is live, that some customers are actually using already, you can gather some initial feedback from that. And you can see it's okay, maybe these pages are working well, this feature is not working that well. And then you can deep dive into why it's not working well. because this is something that analytics never tells you. So yeah, like there are different kind of research that of course are depending on where are you in the design process. And this is something that also I'm going to cover through the course. Again, the first and most important part is understanding the problem. And again, understanding if the problem is the right one, that it's not necessarily the one that you're briefed with. And secondly, how big it is. So what kind of impact that would bring. If only a few people actually have that kind of problem, it's very hard to justify the effort to create a solution for it. So you also help product managers, for example, to quantify the impact that would get in terms of customers and different kind of customers. So if you actually, define very well the problem up front, then the solutions that you're going to design later always, and that they're going to be validated through different kind of testing again. So let's imagine that you set a problem, then you start to create some solutions, and then you want to validate if that actually those solutions are working well. So you don't evaluate the solution only from, for example, a usability point of view, but also to make sure that your solution is responding to the first problem that you defined up front. That's super important. If not, again, it's an exercise of style. And UX is not about style. It's not like different kind of designs. Like it's really rooted into process, and is rooted into data, is rooted into logical reasonings, and evaluating against principles, for example. So yeah, that's it. Like that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Erika. Really interesting, the final sentence that you shared with us, like because most of the people, myself, before getting to know our program a bit better, I was expecting UX to be really like, you know, intuition that helps some people to build a better or worse design of their interfaces. But yeah. So thank you for sharing this. I can see people saying hi from Bratislava, Barcelona, and I'm really happy to have people from all over the Europe. While I invite everybody to share their questions, because this is a chat with Erika, so each of us, if you have any question, feel free to write them down, and I'll ask them loud for you. In the meanwhile, I'll anticipate another question, which is a big question. I have several big questions, actually. They normally come from the candidates I meet during the meetings for this program. What is the right background in terms of academic or professional to be able to do in a good way this profession? And also, if you can talk a little bit about attitude, that's also, I strongly believe, I'm a psychologist, and I strongly believe that each of us has the right attitude to do something like professionally, and maybe the group of UX designers has some traits that puts them together. I don't know if you would like to share some thoughts.
Of course. So let's say again that in my experience, I also worked with a lot of UX designers that were coming from many different backgrounds. So there is not like a magic formula to make the perfect UX designer. Of course, like maybe somebody that is coming from a design background is a little bit, has a little bit of an advantage, I would say, just because again, at the end, this also comes to create solutions. So where again, maybe some knowledge about topography, colors, interface, UI patterns, etc. Of course, I could be helpful. But at the same time, I also met a lot of people that are coming even from business background. So studying business and then approaching more like the service design and UX world, where again, analytical and strategical skills are coming live, like they're super important as well. So it's really like, there's no, for me, like from my point of view, there's not like let's say a magic magic wand that tells you, yeah, you're perfect for being a UX designer. Again, in general, if you're very empathetic as a person, like that is something for sure that would help you in your daily job, because again, as I said, is our role to advocate for customers. Also, like not only with clients or within teams, but also like from an organizational point of view. So that was the first question, and the second question was about attitude, you said. Okay, attitude, that's a very nice question. So again, I would say that being empathetic, as I said, very important. Being able to combine a lot of information, so being very clear in the communication, and also, understanding other people's perspectives, because we are a little bit like the bridge between what development does, so right, developers that actually code and launch things, and also we are in the middle of that and product management. So we are actually the people that come, that makes things at the end, right? So we need to understand, for example, technical feasibilities, or if something that we're designing actually can be launched technically, because that is not something obvious. And also from a product management perspective, that is actually scaling the business, right? That is helping us to achieve like business goals. So I think in general, like the attitude that I try to have in my daily job is, again, being open and being understanding, and especially though when it comes to, push a little bit and being a little bit like, let's say, an advocate when it comes to customers. Let's say, yeah, I try to challenge, but not in a super uncomfortable way. I ask questions. That's what I do most of the times. And then they kind of understand that after a while, like, oh, actually, yeah, like you're right. Like we don't have this answer yet. So, so I would say that, again, you as a UX designer, like in the field, you collaborate with a lot of people. If you work for a big company like the one that I'm currently working for, you need to manage a lot of stakeholders. So having a very, let's say, empathetic and human relationship with others is actually super, super important.
Thanks, Erika. I see that a few questions are coming. So Martina is asking, what can't be missing in a designer, UX researcher daily routine?
Okay, I would say briefs. I would say briefs. So again, research, when it comes to research, you need to be very, structural. So you need to make things very tidy, because of course, if other people are contributing to that, you need to make sure that everybody understands the main objective. What I mean with a research brief is where you basically define like research goals and research questions. So what is the scope and the objective of that research? And then again, that is going to help you to create all the, for example, the script or the moderation guide that you're going to use during the research session. And that is going to always help you to see if the findings that you found at the end actually respond again to the main objectives that you define up front. So I would say briefs mainly.
Okay, second question, Gabrielle. I'm not sure always if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, so I apologize if I don't. What are the most common bias we face when interviewing people, and how to avoid them? I love them. I love biases. But
indeed. So the first thing is to be conscious about it. If you're having a bias, you need to call it out. Also for yourself, to make sure that you know, because that might indeed, let's say, bias also how you capture the insights at the end. So how to avoid them? I'm not sure if there is a specific formula. Being aware, of course, makes you, iterate on it and make sure that you just realize it up front, right? Of course, when you capture data, usually, again, there is, as I said, there is one specific profile that is the UX researcher, which is super skilled and trained professionally to actually ask questions, like maybe as a psychology background, or again, they are super trained to interview people, so they know how to do that. If you're doing it by yourself, of course, again, try to, like, I think like the biggest bias that I saw, especially from not only like from a candidate point of view, like participants, but also like when you actually want to validate your own solutions, you're like, and you ask leading questions. That is the worst. Like, that's the worst that you can do. For example, you just ask, do you like this feature? Don't you? Leading question. This is not an answer. Like they would feel super, under pressure, and they would say, yes, I love it. But actually, maybe at the end they don't. So yeah, as an interviewer, you have to make sure that you follow the best practices, and also again that you also are aware of your common biases that we all have. Like, it's something that we all have. So just make sure that you are aware of it.
Awesome, thank you. And Valeria is asking, did it happen to you to have contrasting result between quantitative and qualitative data? And what did you do to come to conclusions?
Right. Yeah, that happened. That happened a couple of times for sure. So what happened was that, for example, I worked on a different kind of research. So we had one pilot that was saying something. So like the performance of that pilot was saying, was giving like one result. And the kind of qualitative research that I conducted on the side actually was going completely into another direction. So what I do in those cases is just I try to consolidate everything to one document. So make sure that all the insights are captured from different kind of research, and just like see the discrepancies and just call out the discrepancies. And again, you basically start again another research project. So you work with assumptions, saying, okay, like we are seeing this, we're not really sure about what is going on here. That the lack of clarity means that you need to run research again, because you cannot work with something that is not accurate. So I would do it like that. So I would just consolidate everything that you have and just call out what are the discrepancies, and just making do like another extra fast research to just make sure that at the end you have like a final call on that.
Okay, I see that many questions are coming, so I'm going fast, Erika. Tell me if I'm going too fast.
Sure.
Doiran, what advantages do UX designers who can code have over UX designers who don't, if any?
Another very good question. So that kind of skills really depends on the company that you work for. Because, for example, there are some companies like Booking.com that actually they require UX designers to have some coding skills. Let's say that I see a code. I don't code, for example. I don't know how to code, and I also admit that, like, I can't do that. I see like the benefit of actually having some coding skills, especially in the prototyping phase, and also when it comes to understanding feasibility issues. So again, if you can actually do a prototype that is going to be most likely the one that you're going to launch at the end, of course, like, that is more accurate. If you can actually code and make a landing page or any kind of page, like how that would look like at the end, of course, you have higher fidelity. And again, when I said about feasibility, so that would mean that you have a common vocabulary with developers. So if you actually know how the code works, then you can have a smoother conversation with developers and say like, well, I actually know this, like then we can actually implement this, rather than it's up to you. You tell me if this is actually feasible or not, like I do, for example. So yeah, prototyping and feasibility issues for sure.
We have two questions that are related to the product. What do you expect from the product manager in a user research process? Gabriel is asking them, and I'm connecting this to the second question coming from Elif. I'd also like to know more about product management, following on Gabriel's question. I'm currently working as a UX researcher at a design agency. Is product management a viable next step?
That's That's a hard question. Again, I am not a product manager, so I wouldn't say that I know perfectly how that works. Again, I see somebody that maybe has more like depends on what kind of UX researcher you are. So if you are more like a quantitative researcher, so you're more like a data analyst, that might work, because again, it's a lot rooted into understanding the performance of a product. But I don't know. I don't feel completely comfortable to answer this question just because I'm not a product manager. So again, I see the connection. So product management and design overlap a lot when it comes to strategy. So when it comes to strategy, there is a lot of overlap there, and there is always like this weird boundaries, like, oh, but this is my task, or no, this is actually my task. So it is more like I see it as a collaboration effort. So just to respond to what do you expect from a product manager in a user research process is, again, refining the brief with me and make sure that the kind of insights that we're creating actually would feed back into other documentation that is helping us to actually quantify how big the problem is and what kind of business impact is going to bring. So yeah, it's more like a collaboration from then. Usually like product management is more like supporting user research, for example, also to conduct research when it comes to consolidating insights, and especially when it comes to defining the next actions that you need to take after research. That's where mostly are involved. At least this is in my experience, I would say.
I would like to add a few things about this question, because we do have only in the Italian version so far a digital product management path. And I've selected the last 3 classrooms that have been part of this Italian Garden path. I would say like between 30 and 40% of the participants were designers. Most of the time they were, let's say, invited or sponsored by the company, because this was the next step they were going to take within that company. I'm not sure about the fact if it was a small, medium enterprise or a big corporate. I can't tell you precise data about this, but for sure, designers were an important portion, and then developers in some way. And yeah. Just wanted to share this statistics to complete Erika's question, because as she said, it's really honest and fair from her not to say complete response, given that she doesn't know the other half, or what is the product management.
Right.
So Erika, another Erika is asking, you raise a lot of questions. You said that you raised a lot of questions. So what are the most common questions you put forward?
Very good question. Okay, so really depends on the project, I would say. But in general, when it comes to did we run any research before? Do we have any existing insights that actually tells us that, for example, this is a good direction for us to develop or build this solution? I think in general, I always raise or put forward the ones that are the most impactful. So really it's not like, oh, this is a nice question to answer. No, it's really at the core, when actually impacts the scope and the core of the project. So is that basically the strategy in place? So that's most likely strategic questions. Those are the questions that I put forward for sure, especially at the beginning.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Karen asking, do you need a certification to work as a UX designer? How can one get a job as a UX designer?
Well, again, there's not a evergreen solution for this. Of course, having a certification just sort of demonstrates that you already gathered this kind of knowledge, right? So that is more like a badge for you to show, to say I actually studied this professionally. Of course, in any kind of design field, there are a lot of tutorials, there are a lot of things on the internet that you can actually get, but that could be also very overwhelming, I believe. So, and also that would help you to actually have an idea like how that actually works in real life, because that is something that you don't know before that, and also to build especially the portfolio. That is one of the biggest friction that I saw also from, I do mentoring, so I also mentor a lot of people that want to actually enter into this field. And again, a UX course allows you to also like get exercises and put something like in your portfolio to say, okay, I did actually an information architecture exercise, or I did like a user testing, or I developed this interface. So that gives you the tools to go to a potential employer to show you something that you did already. That of course you can do by yourself as well, but that might be a little bit slower and less accurate, I would say.
And I'll also add a question, because I know Talent Garden program that is really hands-on approach, but I suppose there are more theoretical approach, and nothing against them. I mean, I think different people prefer different styles, but what about the employers? What do they prefer the most?
Again, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there is a general expectation for our regards. Of course, like there is a lot of, is expected to know the theory, because again, UX design is all rooted into the process. So if you don't know some tools or when to use specific tools, of course, it's something that it's important to have. But when it comes to actually showing the work, so when you actually show something that you did, the level or the kind of challenges that you can face, because there you go, that is actually what they look for mainly. How do you approach a challenge? It's not about the output per se, so how that looks, because again, maybe your design skills, like interaction design skills, can grow over time, but it's the way you think, it's the way you actually approach different design challenges. And that, again, the exercises and like more hands-on work can help you to get that mindset, to get that strategic mindset, to that design mindset to approach specific challenges across the product development process.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I'll jump to Arcilia. What are your tips for somebody who's about to join a UX design bootcamp? How should we prepare, and how do you make the best out of it?
Mm-hmm. Again, I don't know like exactly like what kind of UX design bootcamp are you talking about, but in general, like you can for sure read some things up front, so then you're sure that you're not overwhelmed, because that's, I think, the biggest challenge there is that when you approach UX design, it's a lot of things, and you can again become like different kind of designers within the UX design field. That's also something to say. So I think maybe reading upfront something about, again, IDO design processes, or reading some articles of, the different phases of the design process, that would help you to get, a nice base to build on top. And in general, like just be open about it, and just make sure that, again, if something is not clear, ask questions all the time, and just make sure that you gather all the knowledge that you need to make sure that you gain all these principles or these major tools that you will need in the future.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Martina, how new technology trends do impact the process of design and interfaces? I'm thinking about touchless interactions like voice user interfaces and air gesture control.
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, depends on what you're designing for. Like, that's super cool, that there's specific technologies available now. In general, like the technology trends are used at the beginning, right, of the design process, just to understand what are the possibilities there. Technology trends, of course, also tells you about how customers are going to behave in the future. So expectations, so understanding expectations regarding technology. But in general, like again, you would need to work on specific companies to actually apply that on a daily job. So because of course, like those trends are also needs to match the capabilities that the company that you're working for. So they're out there, but doesn't mean that your company or the company that you're working for or the client that you're working for actually has it. So it's more like, again, understanding the market and understanding how the market is evolving over time, which is super helpful. But I would say more like at the beginning of the design process, when you do some benchmarking and desk research to understand what are the possibilities out there.
Okay, and then Lani, how do you decide on a product feature? Deciding which feature, I'm not able to read actually, sorry, which feature to build.
Okay, so again, this is going a little bit in the product management field, I would say. But in general, again, if we, for example, do a design sprint and then we come out with a set of ideas that we would like to prototype. In general, there are some prioritization frameworks where basically you just prioritize things that are easy to develop, but also have high impact. There is a specific prioritization framework that I also can share later, that basically, again, puts you in a position where you need to map what comes first. That could be one, so feasibility could be one asset, but also in terms of what kind of impact that will bring. So that really goes in collaboration with product management to understand what has the biggest impact for the business and for the customers. So yeah, I would suggest you to search for prioritization workshops. That is exactly what you need.
Okay. Then we have a question that is recommendations for books. So any recommendations about books that turned really useful to yourself?
Well, many. Many. There is one article that I wrote that is on Medium, where also I list some of the books that helped me a lot, especially in gaining this expertise regarding data and research. So yeah, they're listed there, but just to name a few ones. So there's one called the UX strategy, which is super helpful to understand, again, how you also increase the maturity of UX internally of a company. So it talks about, again, how do you make sure that the company or the client that you work for invest some resources to actually conduct the research, and how design maturity models are actually what are the different steps of the design maturity model, and how can you basically push companies to have a more customer-centric approach. Something a little bit like Lean UX also could work, again, to have this very fast iterative process. So don't make things super shiny, but just, mock up something, make a quick prototype and just test. I'm a big fan of that. What else? I think these two are the biggest ones that for sure create a lot of impact. There are also a lot of other books regarding research, specifically more into qualitative. So again, the best practices that I mentioned before, they're listed there. But yeah, again, there are some resources that are already shared online on Medium in case there is a list there.
Okay, then there is Luigi. I'm starting to select questions. Sorry if I can't, if all of you won't be having answers today, maybe we can establish a way on how to contact Erika later on. Luigi is asking, from your personal experience, what is a good strategy you would use to make a company's management perceive the value and needs of a good UX? That's a good question.
Indeed. I just mentioned about the design maturity model. That is exactly what I was referring to. So again, every company can be mapped into this sort of scale. So there is the 0, where basically they don't even know what UX is, they like one very common quote that you can hear for this from these companies: "We know our customers, we know our users, we know everything about them." And that is where, again, there is a lot of friction to actually get out from that stage. In general, from my experience, I also worked in companies where actually I didn't succeed in like doing that, because it was something that was coming from, the bottom rather than from the top. So in general, I believe that a company transformation happens only in one case, where there is a design leader inside the company, or a leader that can actually advocate for design. Is the only way to actually make sure that allocated resources are going to be sourced, basically. Because without that, it's very hard to create create a seat in the table of the upper management when it comes to design, if you don't have somebody that actually advocates for it at that level. Again, when you have somebody that is a leader that wants to advocate for design, can already start to inject research, like creating teams, creating different teams based on the product that you're working for. So maybe you have a B2B side or a B2C side, and then you have two split teams. Fortunately, that is something that happened to me. So I realized that later, that you need to have somebody that advocates for you, fortunately.
I think Daniel is asking a question that maybe finds the answer in the previous one. So have you ever been in the situation where you were expected just to perform tasks but not seen as a consultant, and how did you deal? So like decision makers do not take your advice.
Sorry, I'm just reading again.
It's about decision makers, I suppose, like C-level managers or your manager, that it's not taking into account your advice, but not just expecting you to perform what.
Oh, absolutely. That happens. That happens very, very often. Absolutely. Again, I think the more you grow as a UX designer, of course, like your communication skills and your stakeholder management skills grow with you. So, of course, especially if you're a freelancer, that's most likely you're measured into the task that you actually need to fulfill. And they don't see your opinion as a valuable asset for them to maybe shape specific decisions. I always say, like, pick your battles, like you cannot win them all, fortunately. So just pick the ones that you find the most meaningful for you. Sometimes you have to let it go. I also tell this myself most of the times. So you really need to decide where you want to put effort into really advocating and like consulting and just giving back to the team or the client that you're working for. That's what I also said, like, make things pretty. That happened. It's just like, make it pretty. We don't care about people. Like, we don't care about users. Just make it pretty. Yeah.
That might be frustrating for a designer, right?
I mean, after a while, you just get used to it, and you're like, sure, like, I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna also do something else for you. I think I like to build on top of things rather than saying, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna do that, but also something else that could be even more impactful for you.
Okay, let's go with a couple more questions. So
thank you again for all these nice questions. This is great.
Yeah, they're really nice, actually. What helped you the most when you started your career, and what was the hardest task you ever got?
Mm-hmm. Nice. What helped you the most when you started your career? So I approach like this field like in a super curious way. So I started to just read and learn about anything possible. Like, I spent 3 or 4 years just reading like a lot of books and a lot of resources, especially for me to create more confidence, to express my skills, and make sure that actually I have very solid base, especially like theoretical but also practical, to actually do my job like the best. The are the task, what do you ever get? I think, yeah, this was referring a little bit back to the question of Luigi. So when you are actually capable to have an impact into a company or a project, and you're not, let's say, allowed to do that because there is some again, a lack of understanding and lack of knowledge regarding the topic that you are currently working for. Unfortunately, designers still need to fight a lot to prove their value into companies. We still do that. And I think that was for sure, like one of the hardest tasks that I ever got to actually teach them and like advocate for design in itself. And again, seeing that also when you don't have an open audience in front of you that actually are not willing to grow and to challenge themselves as well, you cannot do much. So it's also, again, up to you to understand like how much you want to be involved in those kind of situations. But for sure, that was, yeah, the hardest that I ever got.
Okay, and I would say last question is almost dinner time for most of the Europeans. How is the pandemic influencing UX design? Are there any phases of the design process, mostly UX research perhaps, or any practices of shaping user-friendly services that would be rethought?
Interesting. Well, I mean, I think this year really changed a lot of dynamics, especially when it comes to digital services or again, e-commerce in our case. So again, basically that proved that digital is the way, is optionally the only way you can go in the future. And that forces us to really put a lot of attention to it right now. So for sure, I think the pandemic really put a lot of light into something that was already existing, but really getting rid of all the offline experiences that is basically the only way that you can get, for example, specific services or products. Are there any phases of the design process or any practices of shaping user-friendly services that should be rethought? I'm not sure if I understand the question, to be honest.
Well, what I thought when I read the question is that probably the time that we use the technology now is much higher. Probably we're connected, just like today. We can't attend physical meetings. We can't attend most of the things that used to happen physically. So it's more often, and probably also it responds differently to our needs, because we used to enjoy maybe going to do some grocery shopping, but now it's like if you feel the risk, you have to choose it online. And right. I remember before the COVID situation, a lot of supermarkets didn't have an e-commerce, and now it's a big moment for all of them, I suppose, for those right. that.
Yeah, I think, again, like there is a lot of things that can actually, that can be improved in that sense. I think from medical services into, again, how do you actually interact with other people? That is also like super, that change completely, created that big disruption in our daily life. I think when it comes to this, when actually technology and new digital services are expanding, I think something that also us as designers, we need to take in consideration design ethics. So how much we want to actually push customers to use our products, and where is the baseline where we actually, shaping bad behaviors rather than good behaviors. Also for people well-being and the personal space. So yeah, for sure, this expansion of the digital, this last year, basically just brought us into also having to rethink the way we design things, and we need to also make sure that we put some ethics in it.
Okay. Erika, is 8:03, so I suppose you are hungry just like everyone else now. It's dinner time, so I wouldn't get more questions. I don't know if you would like people to contact you in LinkedIn or so if they have a further question about the topic. And I would like to remind everyone that we are going to have a few similar events in the next days, but just to let all our participants know who are the experts involved in our teaching experience, have some main basics about the topic just to figure out if it's the right one or not, because as we said today, like maybe UX is perceived as something, but it's different for those that do this job every day. And I really appreciate that Erika shared some practical thoughts with us today. Most important thing I would like to remind you all, Challenge Day 19th of March, we are going to have a brief. Each of you can present a project and prepare a project in an hour and present it in 2 minutes, and that will allow you, if you're in the top 3, to win a scholarship. So maybe I'll see you on March 19th, and that's it from my side. I would like to thank you all, but most importantly, Erika, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. I really liked all the questions. I wish we had even like more time to answer to all of them. But again, as you said, Dorina, just feel free to drop me a line on LinkedIn. Yeah, we can follow up on specific questions if you have any. So yeah, thank you everybody for participating. It was really nice.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.